there's a New York Times article that came out in late June that is an exclusive interview for the first time Dan Schneider's given an interview since he was fired from Nickelodeon back in 2018. Now, we talked about that in lieu of that firing because it was interesting. We talked about it on the radio show, and it was fascinating because it was shortly after a contract renewal, I do believe, with Nickelodeon and Dan Schneider. It was abrupt as all hell. There wasn't any concrete reason. Nickelodeon just released some typical PR statement about it. And if you guys remember the context of the world at the time, it was right in the height of the Me Too movement. And for years, even before the Me Too movement really caught wind or caught fire, Schneider's name was thrown out there a lot on social media as somebody who could potentially be a problematic individual to both his cohorts and his actors. And as we know, Dan Schneider, creator of such shows as Drake and Josh, All That, The Amanda Show, Zoe 101, iCarly, and Victorious more recently, Henry Danger too, if you care about that. But of all that, working with minors almost exclusively on those shows. And I remember even saying it because we were on radio last time talking about this. We have to be careful how we approach this because it's a lot of hearsay and it's a lot of Reddit articles and YouTube videos. Like, there's no real evidence yet. And we kept waiting for the shoe to drop, the three of us, and we never, because I thought for sure within the next maybe month or two of that of him getting fired, that somebody would come out and say something. But nobody
you think it'd
really
be like a House of Cards, like a Cosby or a Weinstein situation. But I'm maybe not fully, but I'm fairly convinced that if something like damning, even like an accusation, like a really like, okay, you're aiming for that. Not even, I don't mean to say aiming, but like, you know what I mean? It's like, if the accusation is up there, it's like, but everything just seems to be, he's an asshole, which
pretty much
par for the course for Hollywood or just the world of entertainment, right?
Which isn't illegal. Sure. It's frowned upon to be an asshole, but it's not illegal. At the end,
I'm glad it's getting more frowned upon to be an asshole. That's good. That's progress, I think. But like, I would think. But I'm just saying, if something, you know, Weinstein or Cosby level hasn't dropped quite yet, either he's got an amazing like wash team that he's paying really damn well to keep tabs on everything. I don't freaking know. That's all hearsay. That's all speculation. Or it just ain't there quite yet. I don't know. I've tried searching for it. It's just not there. I don't know.
No, it's not. And I mean, first things first, though, if you look at this New York Times article, which again is a very fascinating, very quick read. I read this thing twice. He looks different. He's lost a lot of weight. That guy's lost probably over 100 pounds. He looks very different. He looks cleaner. He looks healthier as just an individual. And he's been on a hiatus for the last 3 years. And it's funny because this New York Times article written by Matt Stevens and Julia Jacobs, it opens with him with the story of him accepting Nickelodeon's first and only Lifetime Achievement Award back in 2014. And it's kind of a humbling image too, because he's surrounded by like Victoria Justice and Drake Bell and Nathan Kress and Ariana Grande and all these people that, you know, whose careers he helped launch. I mean, at the end of the day, the Norman Lear of children's TV, the New York Times once billed him as, which is, you know, fairly accurate for all intents and purposes. Norman Lear never had this level of allegations, though, or at least this kind of criticism levied to him in this big a way. But there's a lot to talk about with Dan Schneider. Another detail is that I guess he's got a new pilot in the works. I don't know if it's doing super well, though, because in the article it says that he should know, or we should know by the end of July if it's greenlit. It's now the middle of September, and you can't find any information on it outside of this article. So I don't know. And he doesn't really give too much information on this show, aside from the fact that it's going to be a brand new network. It's going to be a bit more adult oriented. And it's going to be ambitious. That's the word he keeps throwing around with this. But he goes into, and I was kind of surprised, he goes into these allegations a little bit and stuff. And there's a lot. I don't know if we can't really go piece by piece in this of all the information and stuff like that. But There's some interesting stuff in here too. I mean, it talks about his upbringing and whatnot, but then it like talks about, I think the thing that I got a kick out of the most, a lot of people have addressed, because there's a lot of anonymous quotes. A lot of people address his temper, his attitude, and just his general work ethic, which was really intense from what a lot of people say. And he was often known to like lose his temper a lot. There's that brought up quite a bit. And I'm trying to find the one quote that I was laughing at when I read this whole thing. It was talking about like how he had a bathroom that was near his office that apparently was only for him. And then he would sometimes be pushed around from room to room in a chair so he could keep working. Like, Jesus Christ.
He's got issues. He's like
He's got
serious.
like some there's a lot of this, and there's multiple people that are saying this too. There's multiple anonymous quotes that are saying this and confirming this. Even the one guy who sings his praises and said it was fundamental best years of his life getting a start there as a writer on Dan Warp and Schneider's Bakery for 6 years, talked about what a prick he could be, talked about what an intense prick he could be. It seems like this guy, you know what it really seems like? And then I'm going to throw it over to you, Joe. You know what it really seems like to me? This seems like a guy who never left high school. That's what this sounds like. This sounds like a guy who's never left high school. And it's one of those things too. You kind of see this sometimes with like educators and teachers in some ways, because especially that are in teaching high school and stuff like that, they never really leave high school, and they're surrounded by the gossip of their kids and their students. It's kind of like in this situation. He's writing for kids and teens and tweens. He's working around a lot of young people in a very hectic industry. The shows that he does got sillier and sillier over time. And I think he's adopted that mindset of kind of like the baby in the room who always gets everything, because Nickelodeon treated him like a damn king, from the very beginning. Nobody ever challenged him, it sounds like. That's what it reads like to me. I agree with Dom's point, though. And again, Joe, you take it from here. I agree with your earlier point, though, Dom. If there was some damning factual thing, I mean, I would have thought Jeanette McCurdy would have come out. What the hell does she have to lose? What the hell does she have to lose at this point in her career? If anything did happen, Amanda Bynes is another one who, is not tied in the Nickelodeon family anymore. That's kind of my 2 cents on it. It's a fascinating read. Joe, what say you about this article?
I'm kind of glad you brought up this whole idea that he's like still like a high schooler basically, because he's surrounded by everything. So I brought up this image of Steve Buscemi in a high school saying, "How do you do, fellow kids?" Because like that's probably how he looked coming into boardroom meetings and like script readings for shows of iCarly, Victorious, and all those other shows that he created. Yeah, I mean, like, look, I'll start with this. I can't say like this guy didn't make some of my favorite shows to watch on Nickelodeon. I loved watching Drake and Josh, and like even like stuff like iCarly and Zoe. Like I actually did enjoy Zoe 101, but iCarly and Victorious after that, like I wasn't as crazy about them as I was for Drake and Josh and even Zoe 101. But I did tune in more often than not to like watch it. So it's just like I understand like how popular this guy was at the network and how much power he probably did have that made him feel the way he was and create the asshole that he turned out to be. So I'm not surprised at all that like when all the stories came out about him being an a-hole, because like if you I remember I used to like see those like behind the scenes things, and I always used to have like a creepy vibe from him. And then as Steve pointed out, when he left in 2018 excuse me, I felt, oh, well, here we go. This is obviously going to be it. There's going to be something dropping, like, as soon as possible. And I remember, like, each night before going to bed at college, I would Google his name every Tuesday night leading up to the show. I'm like, just in case. I mean, is there anything? And then we would do the show Wednesday at 12 a.m. And again, nothing came of it. It was just so weird. It's either what Dom said, where it's like, this man either has, like, the best, like, legal team to keep this on the down low, or like maybe he just didn't do anything and he was just honestly a dickhead to everybody that he worked with. And I'm hoping it's the latter, because the last thing I want, like, as much as I'm like expose this dude. It's just like, but in the end, it's like, well, then that means something horrible must have happened to Victoria Justice, Miranda Cosgrove, Ariana Grande, and even Jeanette McCurdy, which, you know, yeah, and like, who knows? I remember when Drake Bell's stuff came out, I was like, okay, here we go. Maybe like there'll be something tied to this. But yeah, there wasn't. But I mean, if he comes back to TV, which it doesn't seem like he is, because as Steve pointed out, that whole pilot hasn't even had like anything come out yet. Excuse me, my throat is very dry. I need some water. Excuse me. I feel like we should have saw something by now, but regardless, it's whatever. I hope this guy just stays out of the spotlight for as long as possible, because it's just like, he either was really creepy or an a-hole, and I don't think he should continue to work with kids or anybody for that matter, regardless of what happened.
Problematic is the key word here.
There we go. Yeah, there it is.
Insert Bo Burnham's problematic in here, because it really is that. And like there's some weird details, man. There's one here without even like it happened. There's this YouTube video called Victoria Justice Takes Us on a Tour of Victorious, circa August 7, 2012. And it's linked in the New York Times article. And in there, it's really forced. It's one of those stupid, like 4-minute fake behind the scenes things where you just get to look at Victoria Justice for 4 minutes, essentially. It's content, but yeah. She's like, hey, look at some parts of the set a little more closely than when you see in the show. She opens up her fake locker, right? And it's like, it's got a bunch of girl things, right? And of course, one of them is like hot guys, like, stuff a high schooler would do, right? At least high schoolers as you would write them. But, it's like, hey, here's a picture of hot guys. And one of the pictures is Dan Schneider, is like young Dan Schneider. And it's like, gee, that's really weird. Now, as the article states, apparently Dan Schneider was like, someone on the art team probably put that on there as a joke, which is very possible. But also, if Dan Schneider's really as controlling as he is, that's kind of weird, dude. Like,
if he's as controlling and prone to snap as he is, then why would somebody in the as an art director, go just tack something, especially him knowing his temper, tack a photo of him in high school into Victoria Justice's locker, which is going to be used as a bit on the website or something like that.
Yeah, either they wouldn't do that because they know that would piss him off, or they know that he would like that. And that's weird.
Yeah, you got to consider that too.
It's just weird. It's problematic. It cannot be stated how influential Dan Schneider is. It cannot be stated how influential Dan Schneider is in the world of children's television. Really, for a whole stretch of time, from the 90s to just a few years ago, it seems like. Even if you look back at his work and you roll your eyes at some of the stuff he does, right? No, he was a producer for all that was so influential, for the first 2 seasons, and then wound up being an executive producer for seasons 4 through 10, right? So you can draw a straight line from Kenan Thompson's career to now him being the veteran cast member on SNL. You can draw a straight line to that. That's, wow, Jesus, that's Kingmaker stuff right there, man. And I got
a discussion with a coworker today about Good Burger, actually, because he wrote that. He wrote Good Burger. He's in it. Yeah. Because he only ever wrote 2 movies, to my knowledge. He wrote Good Burger and he wrote Big Fat Liar. And I think Big Fat Liar was the last movie he even ever worked on. But those were just 2 fundamentally good movies. That I think even adults would find charming. They weren't too stupid. They weren't too random. They were just well-made, defining 90s, early 2000s comedy. I mean, Dan Schneider, even with everything we know, the Norman Lear of children's TV is not hyperbolic. That's not a hyperbolic way to describe him. No, it's not. Just in terms of just the shows he juggled. It's not like he did one at a time either.
Yeah, that's a really good point. You can't deny it. He's a hard worker, and he made money. He got the ratings. He launched whole careers. So if not Kenan Thompson, then Ariana Grande is going to be the one that really has had the most effect on, because now she's what, a de facto pop star whenever you just think pop music, right? So it's just fascinating to see the case of Dan Schneider, and this story has not ended. It really hasn't, right? You can't, whoever's going to make this Netflix documentary just needs to keep on waiting, because honestly, I feel like we're in a lull, obviously, but shit might hit the fan when like his new show comes out. And,
Yeah.
you know, we said earlier that, you know, hey, Jeanette McCurdy, Amanda Bynes, what do you got to lose? At the same time, maybe the trauma is so bad that like they just don't want to relive. I mean, for crying out loud, Jeanette McCurdy's podcast is literally dealing with depression, and like when like she did a one-woman show called "I'm Glad My Mother's Dead," or you know, and like, Jesus Christ, you've been through some shit, girl. All the best to you. And like, you know, if you find the courage to, if there's something with Dan Schneider, I hope you find the courage to come forward, because maybe, you know, it's only a matter of time where the dominoes will fall. But yeah, again, like Joe said, I hope one, first of all, I hope none of that actually happened, traumatizing to these actors. But like, I don't know, dude. It's
anyways, Scott Fellows, you're a good guy. Ned's Declassified was my favorite show on Nick at Night, or Nick Teen Nick, next to Drake and Josh. So good job not being a weirdo or an a-hole.
There you go.
Yeah, I'll say too, I said back when that video, or when we did that segment on the radio show, I said we'd keep posting on it. I did a bad job because I'm almost 3 months late at seeing this article, but I can't find any information on this alleged show that he's got, and that's this pilot. So I don't know if it got picked up or anything. I wonder what network it would even go to.
I mean, to be fair,
I wonder, it would probably be a streaming thing.
I'm not surprised we did miss this, because it's just like, who the hell has been even thinking about him throughout everything that's been happening in 2020 and 2021. Like,
it's true.
Like between Black Lives Matter, a pandemic, the election, the world literally burning because of Australia and California. It's just like, yeah, Dan Schneider was like the least. I forgot he existed, honestly. The only time I was reminded of his presence is when we watched iCarly, because it said characters created by Dan Schneider. I said, oh yeah, that jagoff still exists.
There's a certain hubris to him coming back, because he could have just like rode out the chaos that was the last several years, while also like I'm sure, I don't know how rich he is, but he's got to be rich, right? He has royalties off all those, syndication up the wazoo.
He got syndication, dude. Not only that, not to interrupt you, syndication, number one. Number two, Nickelodeon paid him $7 million to fuck off.
Oh, that's right.
Like,
so there,
like, seriously, to use our F-bomb.
That's some
today.
good shut the fuck up money.
No, we can't.
You're
say
right.
that.
Hey, you're right.
Well, it's like what coaches do. It's like what coaches, or it's like what again, not to relate it. We'll burn some of the clock here because we'll take a break anyway. But it's like USC football. They just fired their coach, Clay Helton. They paid him a $12 million buyout. Do you know how much they wanted him gone? The last thing companies want to do is give you money not to work. That's the last thing they want to do.